Hello, everybody, it's Tim here. Another movie review. This time for the last voyage of the Demeter. Now, this film is pretty much getting reviews all over the place. It's based off like the part of the Bram Stoker's Dracula novel where Dracula was on the Demeter, pretty much, yeah, and locked everybody out, and the boat was found with like the captain tied to the stern wheel and everything, um, or the mast, I guess you say, whatever you call it. And as far as the film goes, I'll go ahead and say it. I'd give it a 2 out of 4. This was an okay film. It has some good parts to it. The biggest problem here is it just drags tremendously because they're trying so hard to stick to like what was in the novel, I guess. And so they elongate everything, and and by doing that, it makes there be like some big logic gaps in here that really don't make any sense. Like these guys who apparently know that what Dracula is or whatever, or have an idea of it, bring these coffin things to the Demeter boat, and they're like freaking out because they don't want to be there to mess with them. Or they didn't know what they were till they brought them there, and they didn't want to touch them or whatever after that, so they just got the hell out of there. Why they didn't try harder to like warn the crew and the captain and stuff more, I don't know. But they take the stuff aboard, and then when people start missing or going missing and everything, they don't immediately think like, well, those objects and stuff that everybody thought of, or talked about being cursed and all that, and with that dragon insignia on them or whatever, Dracula. They don't immediately go to those, and I can understand at first or whatever because it's the livestock and stuff like that getting killed. I think it could be like some kind of strand of rabies or something, so they don't immediately go to that. So they don't go to those things at first, but after there's people disappearing for so long, you would think you would immediately go to the stuff, the objects that people said were evil, when they put them on board. Because so that really doesn't make much sense. That's what I'm saying. Because they got to keep this so faithful to the Bram Stoker's Dracula novel, the passage in it about the Demeter, they got to really elongate stuff in here so it doesn't really totally work. And they got another part in here in the movie where later on in the movie where there's like way more people dying, and instead of like immediately tossing the stuff overboard, they go and look through the stuff and find like Dracula's soil where he sleeps. Why? And then a couple like hours later or whatever, days later, it seems like it, when more people have died, and they're like, let's just sink the whole ship. Like, why would you not toss his coffin and stuff overboard into the ocean, and all those crates and stuff that had his insignia on them? Why wouldn't you toss those all into the ocean before you immediately went to sinking the boat? Like, it doesn't make any sense, and it's only there deliberately because that they make the characters make illogical decisions just so they can keep the movie as close to the passage from the novel as possible. That's a problem here. You gotta change some things in order to make this story work appropriately for an extended movie. What they should have done was speed up the movie, have more action in it, because this movie lags a lot, and that's kind of a problem here. Dracula, this isn't really Dracula, it's just more like a beast of a monster of a vampire. He's just always in beast mode when he flies around with wings. It's a good design, he looks good, and the special effects for him are good. But it's not really Dracula. Every now and then he talks, but it's more like Nosferatu, the way he speaks, and he's trying to be scary and stuff. And the black dude in it or whatever, who's like the star, I forgot the character's name, but he does a okay job, but there's like literally almost nothing to the character. You find out later he wants to be a doctor or something, that's pretty much it. And he starts talking about how he wants to like explore the world and everything, and he makes friends with this girl who was actually put on board in one of the containers as well to be a snack for Dracula, some Romanian girl. She does a good job, she's fine, but once again her character's kind of flat, mostly because once again this movie is just extended too long, and it's not action-packed and fun enough for a monster movie, because that's what this really is. It is a monster movie, and it's just too dull. Because it's just too long. You got a little kid on board named Toby who has a pretty good little friendship with the captain, and I think he may even be the captain's son. He has a pretty good little friendship with him and the main black dude in this, or whatever, who's the star. Pretty good little friendship going on. It was pretty cool. I liked his character, and then of course he gets killed, which is kind of surprising that they actually take him out, and he ends up turning into a vampire almost when he's on the top of the ship, and they're going to throw his body overboard. He lunges at the captain, his supposed dad or whatever, and he bursts into flames, and then they dump him overboard, after his body's charred up. And it's well shot scene. There's some good cinematography here where his body's like sinking down in the ocean. Well shot, good cinematography, but overall the movie's just too dull. And when they're finally like, well, almost everybody's dead now, let's kill the monster. It's like, well, you should have done this like days ago. And eventually they decide to try to take Dracula out, and he's attacking or whatever. And the dude who's like in Dark Knight Rises, he was also in, or Dark Knight, is one of the Joker's like goons that he brainwashed. He was also in The Boogeyman, the newer movie here recently. I forgot this actor's name, but he's been in a lot of stuff. You know him when you see the movie, but he's one of the main dudes here, and he kind of starts out as like an asshole, an antagonistic asshole, but later on in the movie he gets better and more likable towards the end, because he pretty much like sacrifices himself to try to sink the boat at the end, the ship, and the captain just sacrifices himself as well to tie himself to the mast or whatever, the wheel, and he gets killed. And then you got the last two people, the Romanian chick and the black dude, who are like pretty much the main players. And she's been getting blood transfusions, which has like slowed down her transformation into a vampire, because well, she's been fed on by Dracula already, and if you give them blood transfusions, that pretty much slows it down and keeps them from turning. But another thing is, like, if you go by some vampire lore and stuff, you could probably kill Dracula, and they would probably, anybody that's been bitten might turn back to normal, since Dracula's dead if they haven't fed yet, I suppose. But they don't really go for that, and of course they can't kill Dracula because they gotta. This has to lead into the Bram Stoker's Dracula story, so Dracula's gonna live. So right off the bat, you lose some suspense there. So that everybody's out there going to die, or there's gonna be like one dude that makes it off here, but Dracula's gonna get away. And of course, by the end, they take Dracula out. They fight Dracula, and the black dude like hits him in the back with an axe, and then the chick like shoots him, and she causes this part of the boat, ship, or whatever to fly down, stab him in the gut. Almost looked like it staked him, but I'm assuming if it staked him, it would have killed him. And another thing about this vampire, he doesn't seem to have any problem with crosses in this, like Dracula doesn't, because like the ship's captain and stuff, and the little boy, they both have crosses, but they try to use it against him, and it doesn't really do much. It doesn't do anything really, which I was surprised at that. Maybe it's one of those things where you gotta have like extreme faith or something. I mean, but they're sticking to the Bram Stoker's Dracula book. In the book, I'm pretty sure crosses do hurt Dracula. Here, though, they don't really seem to do anything. But so he's like, they're fighting him at the end. They manage to like stake him to the gut, but not the heart. And they get off the boat. And the chick who can't get any more blood transfusions, she eventually sacrifices her. She gives up pretty much because she's gonna die anyway. She lets herself fry in the sunlight. It's a sad moment. Well shot, well done. And then we get to land or whatever. And this movie just kind of keeps going for some reason, like it wants to leave off on like a setup for a supposed second movie of this made money, and this bombed. So if we get a sequel, it's going to be direct to video, and it won't be the same actor anyway. And we get to shore or whatever, and he sees Dracula there in like a top hat and everything. We still got the monster face, so we never see the human Dracula, him transform fully into his human mode. So he's still in the monster mode, and that's what I'm saying. Like, this didn't really need to be a Dracula story. This could have just been any random movie, like just inspired by the story from Bram Stoker's Dracula, Dracula on a ship, and this could have just been any random vampire. You didn't really need this to be Dracula, really, at all. But yeah. And he gets to the end, and he's like watching the monster like run off or whatever, and he's like, I vow to take you out, hunt you down, and kill you. So if they did a sequel to this, they would probably like change some stuff from the Bram Stoker's Dracula book and have him like team up with like Van Helsing or something, Jonathan Harker from the novel, and he would help like take Dracula out, pretty much is what they would do, something like that. But this Dracula, he's not suave at all. This is just like a monstrous Dracula in constant beast mode, so you never see the suave version of this Dracula. So it's hard to picture this Dracula ever romancing any woman like Mina or whatever from the novel. It's hard to picture that at all. But yeah, overall, I'd give this a 2 out of 4. This is an okay time waster monster movie. It's nothing I would ever really watch again. It could have been better if this movie would have just been condensed more and the pace was sped up, and it wasn't, condensed, not as long. The pace was sped up, and it had more action and more monster action and stuff, and more logical turns by the characters of them like throwing the Dracula marked boxes and stuff overboard and everything, like using common sense. It would have been more interesting and better to watch. And if they would have sped the movie up, they could have had the characters make more logical decisions, but instead they had to have them be deliberately stupid in order to justify having the movie be longer. So it doesn't work. But yeah, overall, it's an okay monster flick. I would never really watch this again. I don't hate it. I don't despise it. The design for the Beast Dracula or whatever, it's good. Good special effects as well. Overall, it's okay. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you again.